Thank you, Jeff. I will do my best for the rest of my life to live up to that. Very wonderful, loving introduction, and I would say it says far more about Jeff than it does me. I'm so happy to be here. I so appreciate the invitation. Whoever was responsible, the board, the organizers, Jeff, I'm so grateful. And I am excited about what I'm going to learn this weekend, but more what I'm going to feel, what I'm going to experience. And it is such a privilege to get to start things off tonight. I'm going to drop this there because it won't fit on this small podium. I want to start by telling you about an experience I had falling in love. Anybody in here willing to raise your hand and say you've fallen in love before? Anybody? Most everybody? I was going to say I fell in love in the summer of 1994 in the upstairs, unair-conditioned room of my parents' home. I was a young man, starting a new family at the time, and I was just finishing up a graduate degree in, of all things, theology. And it required an enormous amount of writing. And in seminary, I fell in love with fiction. I had an English professor, like some we have here tonight, that changed my life. And so as I finished that degree, I said, I'm going to take that same time that I am sitting at that keyboard every day and transition from nonfiction and academic writing to devote that same energy and time and dedication to my fiction. And I did fall in love. I, like a new lover, could not wait to get to that keyboard every moment I could. I could not wait to see what was going to happen next in my novel. I had, as a teenager, I had what I consider a spiritual awakening. As a young man, I had begun to explore creativity and arts in different forms and enjoyed so many aspects of them. I had studied film, and I had made a few short films and a feature film. I had started writing plays and organized a community theater and acted in the plays I wrote. And I messed around with music a little bit, and I'd been trying a lot of different things, but it was that summer that everything clicked for me, and I became a writer. How many writers are in the room tonight? How do you define?
You write.
You write. A writer is one who writes. And that's what happened for me in the summer of 94. It wasn't the first time I attempted writing. It was the first time I became a writer, by which I mean I wrote nearly daily back then. And when I wasn't writing, I was thinking about it. I just was trying to learn all I could, trying to read all I could, to soak up. I had so many questions. And I just was set ablaze, set on fire. And this upstairs room that I was working in, I turned it into this makeshift office, library, scriptorium, sanctuary. And I lived next door to it in a tiny home I was renting. And I had 2 children, very, very small children. And so it was like, not just like having a lover, not just like falling in love. I had a secret. I had a secret place to go to. And the entire outside world just faded and vanished. And I experienced something I never had before. And I tried a lot of different things, but this was it. Now I say that's when I fell in love with writing, but that's not true. I think the truth is that's when I started this relationship with writing. Because I feel like when I fell in love with writing was the first time I read something that moved me, that stirred me, that spoke to me. Can you remember that? Can you remember a time when you read something and you were like, somebody did this? Humans are capable of this? Could I possibly do this? Did you have that experience? Let me see your hand if you did. I forget who said it, but you can Google it. This is not original to me. This is a quote, but it fits as much as anything I'm going to share tonight. I am a reader moved to emulation. I was moved, I was stirred, I was changed, and then I wanted to do that myself. And like so many of us do, I'm sure when I started, I was recreating, I was copying, I was mimicking those writers who had spoken to me. But eventually, I feel like I found my own voice and I am able to no longer, if I pay homage to someone, that's all it is. It's not actually copying them. For me, it's not the short story. How many of you are short story writers? For me, it's not poetry. How many poets in the room? For me, it's not essays. How many essayists? For me, it's not nonfiction, creative nonfiction, any kind of nonfiction. For me, it's the novel. Now, I've written all of those forms of writing, but the novel speaks to me, moves me, and I am called, I would say, to write the novel. It's home to me. I can relate so much to Joyce Carol Oates, who said, the novel is the affliction for which only the novel is the cure. That's what happened to me in that upstairs room, in the home I grew up in, with a little oscillating fan, all the books I owned in the world around me, a folding table with a big-ass desktop computer, and a little rattling window unit that was fighting the heat of North Florida at the time. That's what happened to me. I not only fell in love, but I began a relationship. Tonight I want to talk to you about your relationship. What is the state of your union? What is the state of your connection, of your relationship to your writing? That is all that matters. All that matters. It matters most. And it is foundational. It is where everything else arises. Publication, reviews, readers, movie deals, money, whatever else comes from a relationship. And that relationship is key. My Jasmine is sitting up here, and she can tell you if you ask her that occasionally I will ask her what she sees as the state of our union. Let's talk about where we are. How are we doing? What's going on in the way we're relating? I'm asking you to ask yourself that about your writing tonight. To take an honest look and to see what is the quality of that connection. Maybe you started out hot and heavy like so many lovers do, and things cooled off. And you're like, it's so hard for me to get up early to write. It's so hard for me to stay up late to write. I'm finding it difficult. That blank page is just staring at me in a way that I can't take it anymore. Maybe, like some of you I've already met this weekend, are new to writing. Maybe it's not a journey that you've taken many steps in, but you're beginning the process. When I started this relationship, I lived in not a small town, a micro town. I still live in that town. I plan on dying in that town. It's got less than 3,000 people. There's a state prison facility that there's more inmates in our town than there are people because of the size of the prison. And I knew nothing, like today, and I knew nothing about publishing, about writing, about this thing that I was so interested in, knew absolutely nothing. And I looked around in this micro town and I couldn't find any other writers. Now, had I discovered that I was an alcoholic, I could have found an AA meeting even in a town that small. But I could not find other writers. Maybe they were there, maybe they were in hiding, but I couldn't find them. So I began to study, began to read, began to seek. And as I was doing that, someone happened to, I was sharing with them that I was writing and that I had written a book and I was interested in getting it published and was just so excited about this, what was happening. And she said, well, there was a woman who years ago grew up in the next town over. And she's been published, and she's got a handful of books out, and she lives in the mecca of publishing. You should call her. You should talk to her. She can help you. She'll give you all kind of help, information. The first lesson that I learned in this process was in talking to this writer, because she could not have been less helpful. I am, standing outside of this thing called publishing, and I was so interested and so hungry. I just wanted to ask questions. And I can remember as a 26-year-old young man sitting on the side of my bed. It was a landline, a phone that was actually tethered to the wall. And calling her and just jumping into these questions I had for her. And she could not have been less enthusiastic. She could not have been, there was not a single word of encouragement or of, this is what you do, this is how you do it, or even, she didn't even tell me what her experience was. And if she did anything, I would say it was to discourage me. But in being truly unhelpful, she couldn't have been more helpful. Because the first thing I learned in this journey, in this relationship, was that I had to figure it out. I had to learn how to write. I had to learn how to do all of it. Now, there was a lot of good examples. I was reading what I thought were really good books by good writers, and I thought I was learning what good writing was. And I found in, another town over, a college professor who was, he taught creative writing, but he was a writer himself, and he did workshops. So I signed up for one of those, and I took it. I asked questions. I learned everything I could, and I said, "Hey, can I take you to lunch? Can we hang out? I just want to be around another writer. I just want to learn, soak it in." You are not only responsible, completely and ultimately responsible for your relationship with your writing, but you have to figure it out. And that's key, because in figuring out how to do it, we figure out how to do it, how we do it. Now, each of us in here probably have similar and yet different approaches to the craft of writing, to this relationship that I'm talking about. One of the worst things you could do this weekend is listen to those of us who are sharing and try to do what we do or the way we do it. I hope that I can inspire you tonight. I hope I can say something of value to help you, to motivate you, to speak to you. But it'll only be if I happen to say something and you make it your own and then apply it to your writing, to your relationship. There's examples. Let's talk about your primary relationship right now, your significant other, if you have one. You can look around and see other types of those relationships. You probably had parents or caregivers that were in those types of relationships. You had examples, and you probably picked up a lot of things that may not be the best way to relate. You may have some toxicity in the way you relate. You may have some codependency. You may have some, on and on and on. But you probably picked up some good things too, and regardless, you had to take all of that and you had to decide what kind of relationship you're going to have, how you're going to interact. That's what you have to do with your writing. To be responsible and to figure out how to do it the way you do it. Not the way I do it. Not the way your favorite author does it. The way you do it. That's absolutely critical. We start as readers, we're inspired, we're moved to emulation, and then we have to figure out how to do it. And in figuring it out, there's a lot of things going on, but what we realize very soon, if we're lucky, I think, is that this is a relationship. That we do have a relationship to our craft, to our muse. To that which inspires us, that which speaks to us, and that which we then goes through us and comes back out and hopefully speaks to others. My conclusion, and there are some actual writing professors here, so ask them before the weekend is out what they think about this, because this is just true for me. My conclusion in all of this, And I've gone back and forth over the years, but this is where I am right now. And ask me tomorrow, I may have a different conclusion. But my conclusion is writing can't be taught. It can only be learned. That means if you're in Jimmy or Jeff's class or any workshops this weekend, there'll be a lot of good stuff, valuable information, helpful, but they can't make you a writer. I can't make you a writer, but you can. You can learn it. It may not can be taught, but it can be learned. And so I hope that is what happens this weekend. Now I want to pause just for a moment and ask you to take just a moment of reflection about your writing relationship. Is any of what I'm saying resonating with you? Did you have those moments of reading where you were like, I want to do this? Did you have those starts at writing that didn't quite work out and then later it clicked somehow and then you've been writing ever since? Or maybe it went well for a while and then you hit a patch that was not going so well? Think about where you are now. Think about where you started. Are there any similarities to what I'm saying, what I'm sharing? And most importantly, where are you right now with your relationship with your writing? It doesn't matter to you where I am with my relationship with writing. It should only matter what yours is. What is it? How many of you, if you're willing to, raise your hand, you feel really good about your relationship with your writing at the moment? Excellent. How many of you feel really bad about your? Okay. Excellent. How many of you feel, somewhere in the middle? Okay. That's okay. Wherever you are in your relationship, it's okay. Now, take it out of your relationship with writing and go into your other relationships. How many of you have children? How many of you have siblings that are still with us? How many of you have parents that are still with us? You have so many relationships. Are those relationships always the same all the time? They ebb and flow, they change, don't they? They surprise us. They go really well for sometimes and others they don't. It's okay for our writing to be that way. But I want to be, and there's a reason why, I want to be responsible for the relationships in my life. And I am. I take responsibility for those relationships, for my relationships with my children. I don't think it's on them. I think it's on me. Even now that they are grown. My relationship with my grandchildren. I don't think it's up to them. I think it's my responsibility. Now, I'm a firstborn, overly responsible, but taking responsibility in our relationships improves the quality of those relationships. Taking responsibility for our relationship with our writing improves the quality of our writing. And no matter how good your writing is right now, how good that relationship is, it can get better. It can become more. It can deepen. It can simultaneously feed your soul as it is feeding others, as it is helping them. So I'm encouraging you today to take responsibility for your relationship. And consider, and this came from Jeff And it's actually written on the cake. There's cake. Did y'all know there's cake in the back? There's cake in the back, and it's written on the cake. Consider if this might not be the perfect time, the perfect weekend, the perfect place to renew your relationship with your writing. And for those of you who said it's going great, for those of you who said it's going really poorly, in both cases, renewal brings new life, new opportunities, new growth. In a way, especially at a place like this, we're on retreat. Now, from what I gather, there's some church groups that are also here, some young people. They're on a retreat, and they're probably here to get closer to the Holy Ghost or to Jesus their Savior or, whatever. It could be very similar with our reconnection, our renewal with our writing. I would encourage you to not just spend time together, not just go to the workshops and get all that you can out of this, but to spend some time alone, in reflection, alone with your writing, to see the state of your union and to see if there's not an opportunity for renewal, for a rededication, a recommitment to that relationship. It can be better than it is. It can be deeper and more meaningful than it is, no matter what it is. And it can start with what we do this weekend. But something else to consider is far more challenging and difficult. But that is maybe what we might need to do is to end our relationship with our writing. Have you considered that? Is that a scary proposition? Who would I be in the world if I'm not a writer? How many people are stuck in really unhealthy relationships because they don't want to go through the pain of ending it to get to the other side? I am often surprised when I hear in writing circles and writing communities and writing publications all the coaxing and cajoling and all of the just begging you to write or just telling you how important it is that you press through whatever you're going through, that you work so hard, that you... Is it? If that's what it takes, are you doing the right? I'm not saying you're not a creative, but there might be a better art form. There might be a better fit. I mentioned to you that I tried filmmaking and acting and music and playwriting and other things, and I had to break up with them essentially. Now, some of them I still do to a certain degree or another, but in order to really say yes, we have to say no. And you might have to say no to whatever form of writing you're doing right now for either a new relationship with writing to be born or maybe a new creative endeavor. Maybe you're meant to be a photographer, a painter, interior designer, whatever. Are we willing to look at that? Are we willing to at least consider that if this were a marriage retreat. And if we were all couples here, considering whether we should keep going forward or whether we should end things, it's weighty, it's heavy. But should we not consider it? And I'm not saying that our writing should be a source of constant joy and constant happiness and constant, shallow pleasure. But do you have to have a writing group, a circle of friends that are always sort of manipulating you or forcing you to write? Or can you not wait to open that blank page, not wait to get to that keyboard? Something to consider. A scary something that a lot of people don't consider. As you're considering your relationship with your writing and the state of your union, I ask you to consider, what is your why? Why are you doing it? Why are you here? And why do you write? That's a really important question. Do you write for fame and fortune? How's that working out? Let's talk about writing for money just for a moment. Anybody here willing to raise your hand and say you write for money? You're in it for the money? As you can tell from what I've been sharing and saying, I believe that the writing relationship is a love relationship. That art is a gift. It's a gift given to us, and it's a gift we give to the world. It doesn't mean you won't make money from it. It doesn't mean there's not money involved, but the difference in the motivation, I think, is critical. If you're not doing it for love, but you are doing it for money, what does that make you? What's that called? There are people that want writing to be their sugar daddy, their fix all their problems, to bring in mountains of money. And for some it does. For some people, I have writing friends that have, this is no exaggeration, tens of millions of dollars from their writing, from books and film adaptations and TV shows. And I have writers that, struggle to make enough to, pay for a cup of coffee each week or each day. John Steinbeck said the profession of book writing makes horse racing seem like a solid, stable business. I have found that to be true. According to the Authors Guild, income from books alone for all published authors was just $2,000 per year. The people who actually make a living from their writing, and that's a very, very, very small number, most have a day job, is between $20,000 and $25,000 annually. Most traditionally published books sell a few thousand copies. Most self-published books sell less than 100 copies. If you're in it for the money, it's like going to Casablanca for the waters. You were misinformed. But I don't want you to think that you can't make money from your writing. Anybody here honest enough to raise your hand and say you would like to make money from your writing? Could I make a suggestion? The best, surest way to make money from your writing is ransom notes. I want to take a moment here to talk about those of you who have a day job. One of the most honorable, noble things anyone can do is to be their own patron. To say, writing is the great love of my life, and I want to spend as much time with it as I can. And in order to do that, I'm going to do a day job that allows me to do that. It's an incredible thing, and I salute you if you do that. Some people write for fame. Some of the most successful writers I know personally, again, I'm talking about, household names you probably have heard of, have told me stories of sitting on planes next to someone reading one of their books, and they have no idea who they are. No idea who's sitting next to them. If I say Stephen King, you've heard that name, right? And there's a few others you could say that you would have heard, but for the most part, some of the greatest writers to ever have lived or that are living now write in obscurity. We cannot do it for the fame or the fortune. It must be for love. It must be. Told you I fell in love in 1994. That summer started writing. My first book was published in 1997. Again, I didn't know anything, had no contacts. I didn't have an agent. I didn't even know I needed an agent. I didn't know anything. But I did look at a couple of books that I liked or thought mine might be similar to, and I looked at who was publishing them, and so I submitted. So I submitted my book, my manuscript, to 5 publishers. And 2 of the 5 said they wanted to publish it. One was a mass market paperback place. One was a hardcover publisher that I respected a lot and really liked what they were doing, so I went with them. And they sent me on book tour, and one of the places that I went was the hometown of the editor and publisher, and they took me to dinner and entered my interviews and the book signing that night and everything. It was really just a lovely time. And as the publisher was driving me, I can't remember if it was back to the airport or to one of the events, but somehow it just wound up being the 2 of us in his van. And he said, we were talking about writing and publishing, and I said to him, maybe he asked me what I wanted to do or what my goals were or something like that. And I said, I really would like to write full time. I would like to be a full-time novelist. And he said to me, I think you'll be able to do that by your 3rd book. And I was like, that's what I wanted to hear. And this is a successful publisher. He knows, right? That was 1997 or 98. And I told him that, I wanted, like so many crime novelists and people who write series, I'd like to publish a book a year and, again, be a full-time writer. And he said, that'll happen. That was 1997. My 2nd novel was published in 2004. And the time between, do you know what the time between 97 and 2004 is? It's a fucking eternity. Eternity. And the first part of that time period, I was miserable. I was like, okay, what do I do? I'm writing and I'm submitting and I it's gonna happen, right? And I was just waiting for it to happen, and I just was trying to make it happen, and the next valuable lesson I learned in this relationship was you can only find true, lasting joy and meaning in the relationship itself, in the writing itself, not anything else. It's a spiritual truth that I thought I had already learned in ways, the practicing non-attachment, of letting go, of not being attached to the outcome, and that brings peace. Greatest peace we can experience is when we let go. And I had expectations that were set up. Now, they were mine, but they were confirmed by this publisher that I trusted and believed in, and I thought if he said it, it was going to happen. And in that time period, I learned that I can be miserable waiting for the next rejection letter, waiting for, wanting something to happen. I can be miserable by being attached to the outcome. Or I can find meaning and purpose and true abiding joy by falling in love with the process. Not the reviews, not the publication, not the acclaim, not the money, the writing. That's why I said earlier, if you don't find those things from writing, why are you doing it? I think that's important to ask. If you are looking for those things outside of your writing, I would encourage you to take another look and to see if perhaps you might need to learn the lesson I needed to learn and to fall in love again with writing, with the process, with the relationship, not what other people say about the relationship. Now, when I got published, this relationship became public. And a lot of other people got involved. It's like a primary relationship, significant others, and you have children, and you have in-laws, and you have all friends, and you have to guard the relationship. You have to make sure it is primary. You have to make sure it is getting what it needs, that you nurture it, that you care for it, and not let anything rob it. I let go. I practiced non-attachment. I fell in love with writing all over again. Somewhere between 98 and 2000, let's say. And I still wrote nearly every day. And somewhere around 2003, when one of the many places that I had submitted to contacted me and said they wanted to publish the book, I was happy. So overjoyed. I think I danced a little jig. But it was also just a side effect. It was was also just something that happened, and it's great, and it's wonderful. You get reviews from journals, from people, writers you respect and appreciate. You hit certain lists. You get responses from readers, and you're like, it's all good. I mean, it's wonderful. But it can't compare, nor should it be able to the actual love of writing. Do you love to write? That's what I'm asking you right now. That's what I'm asking you to ask yourself this weekend. Do you love to write? And if not, why not? And if you do, if it's yes, how could you love it more? And perhaps this is the weekend to renew your vows in your relationship with your writing. I'm going to give you another quote. And again, who said it went out of my mind. You can Google it. But when I read this quote 20 years ago, maybe something like that, I was like, oh my God, someone finally gets me. I think, well, I'm not even going to try to tell you who said it. It was, forget who said it. She said, writing is the only thing that I do that I don't feel like I should be doing something else. That's so true for me. Do y'all know that I'm genuinely happy to be here with you? But do you know that I haven't written today yet? Driving over here, I'm not an early riser, so I didn't get up early this morning and write a lot before I came, to drive over. So guess what I'm going to do tonight? I'm going to spend time with what I love. Are you? This weekend? Hear me, please. Okay? Talking about writing is not writing. Reading about writing is not writing. Going to workshops about writing is not writing. Only, finish it for me.
Only writing is writing.
Only writing is writing. And guess who does that? Writers. How many writers are here tonight? I'm happy to be among you. Happy to be one of you. I hope that something I've said has spoken to you. I hope you will consider renewing your relationship, experiencing something this weekend that will cause you to go deeper. Not to make money, but to make art. To make something that speaks to someone else. Something AI can't do. Be human to such a level that it's like you are exposing yourself in a way that makes the reader uncomfortable. Like, whoa. But that vulnerability is where the connection takes place, right? Rumi said, the wound is where the light gets in. Opening yourself up, being brave to expose your humanity is going to speak to other people's humanity. And this weekend we have the opportunity to renew our dedication and our commitment to that. I want to close with some very profound words. Again, from someone I quoted earlier, Joyce Carol Oates. From my faith as a writer. I believe that art is the highest expression of the human spirit. I believe that we want to desire to transcend the merely finite and ephemeral, to participate in something mysterious and communal called culture. And that this yearning is as strong in our species as the yearning to reproduce our species. Through the local or regional, through our individual voices, we work to create art that will speak to others who know nothing of us. In our very obliqueness to one another, an unexpected intimacy is born. The individual voice is the communal voice. The regional voice is the universal voice. Thank you.